Good afternoon to those of you in New York or on Eastern Time, and good morning, evening, whatever. I know Anita is it's evening. I don't know. We have people coming from all different places. That's the beauty of Zoom. My name is Judy Friedman Kadish. I am the director of Americans for a Safe Israel, and we welcome you to another one of our informative Zoom meetings. While people are continuing, you know what, we're not going to do that. I'm going to introduce to you now Anita Tucker, who is it's our great honor to have with us. So we're so pleased to present she's been a longtime partner of Americans for a Safe Israel, AFC, and a friend. Um, Anita is a survivor of the appalling 2005 Israeli expulsion from Gush Katif. Everybody on this call, I think, knows that Gush Katif was in what is now the terror state of Gaza. But it was different back then. She's going to let us know a little bit about it. But in 2024, as we enter the 19th year since Anita was forced out of Gush Katif by IDF soldiers after refusing to live in peaceful protest, it's been 19 years. Anita and her husband Stuart built a roof over their heads in a new agricultural community in the South called Netzer Hazani. The people of Netzer Hazani from Gush Katif had decided that rather than split up and go all over the place, they wanted to stay together. And they stayed together, and the memories of home are visible everywhere. And we've been visiting Netzer Hazani for many years now, and there are all over the place indications that the people of Netzer Hazani would turn on a dime and go back to Gush Katif, but they have a beautiful community now. For those of you who don't know Anita, a taste of her life and leadership. Before being expelled, Anita had grown 3-foot-long celery in her hothouses in Netzer Hazani. So she was doing amazing things. For an area that was sand when she first saw it, it turned into a very flourishing agricultural community. She often speaks of the spirit of the area, which she says still lives among the former residents. She helped so many with their needs post-expulsion. She stresses the need to deal with the ongoing trauma of the second generation and the yearning to return to their incomparable gold sands. When Anita says something needs to be done, she always is in the lead in getting it started. And sometimes not just started, but continued. She also reminisces about her Arab friends in Gaza who had welcomed the Jews there and marveled in their cultural success, but who all probably either escaped from Gaza or are dead at the hands of Hamas. With much talk now emerging about resettling Jewish communities in Gaza, Anita will update us on this struggle and the prospect of returning to reclaim and rebuild communities in the legally owned Israeli land once known as Gush Katif. Is it possible for Israel to reclaim all of Gaza? Why should Arab residents who want to leave Gaza be barred, as they are now, from leaving? What questions must we ask to arrive at the answers we so clearly need? Anita, it's a big range of topics, but I know that you're up to the job of tackling anything. Again, we'd like to thank our co-sponsors for this meeting, Goldie Steiner and her Canadians for Israel's Legal Rights. And I don't see Andrea Spindell. but she is the head of the Canadian Anti-Semitism Education Foundation, which is also our co-sponsor today. So with that, I will turn you over to Anita, who is going to just charm you and delight you today. Thank you.
Okay, thanks so much for that beautiful introduction. I hope I deserve it. I think, first of all, I want to say thank you to AFSI, because I think AFSI, not only today, but all the years from way before we were thrown out of Gush Katif, was there for us. There weren't many organizations that came into Gaza over the years so easily as the AFSI group stood. They would come and we would welcome. I can see it today, them coming off the buses. And it was an amazing thing to see people that had no fear and came everywhere. And then when there was the so-called disengagement and we were going to be thrown out, the AFSI were among the loudest demonstrators, protesters, and spoke up loudly. And there were many among them who came down into Gush Katif to be part of the struggle, stood by us during that struggle. And I'll just tell a little bit. I mean, many of you have heard my stories millions of times. I lived in a place called Gaza in Netzer Hazani, our town, for 30 years. You know what 30 years mean? It's a lifetime. I had children that were born there, grandchildren that were born there. And I really had hoped to have great-grandchildren that were born there. Thank God I have 4 great-grandchildren, but they weren't born there. But I'm planning to still have great-grandchildren, God willing, that will be born there. So I can tell you that I yearn for home, because 30 years is a very long lifetime to be living in one place and being a farmer and so connected to the land. And I think it's important to tell you this story that I've told so many times, and many of you have heard it, but it's important now to the subject of returning to Gaza and what's right about it and what's wrong about it. And when we first came there, and people say, you know, it's not yours. Why are you talking about returning to a place that was never yours? What rights do you have there? And when we first came to look about moving to an agricultural town, we were given a list of places to visit. And the place that was closest to Beersheba, where we had been living for 7 years, 3 children later, I came on Aliyah and pregnant with my first child. And I had a very fast absorption in Soroka Hospital, 9 Bedouins and I, as I often tell. And anyway, we put the 3 kids in the car. They were about 3, 5, and 6. We drove wherever they told us. There was no Waze in Israel. No one drives anywhere without Waze. And we started driving to this place in Gaza, where they were planning to build 3 agricultural towns that were going to connect the Sinai up to Ashkelon. And we get to this place, and what do we see? You know, there's huge sand dunes, totally bald, no insects, no weeds, no anything. And I say to Stewie, my husband, let's get out of here. Are we crazy? Like, you know, going to Israel was crazy enough, but this is totally crazy. And we started looking at the list where to go to next. But meantime, our children, of course, pulled out some plastic garbage bags from the back of the car and started climbing up these sand dunes. And in 1 second, they kept falling back down again. I'm looking from the side of my eye while I'm arguing with my husband where we should go next. And we see them sliding down, and finally they get all the way to the top, to the height of the sand dune, and they sit down on the plastic bags, and in 1 second they're down at the bottom, and this warm, fine sand hugs them in a way that's crazy. So we end up moving there, because they run to us and they say, Abba, Ima, we're staying here. We loved sliding down these wonderful sand dunes. We saw the sea and we're staying. So we flowed with them, and we didn't have any big banners of ideology yelling from the rooftops. We just said, this is going to be home. And we moved there. That was in 1976. We'd said 1975, we visited. 1976, we moved there. And when we moved there, one of the first things that happened was we couldn't move there because there were no houses, there were no greenhouses. And we lived further into the Gaza Strip in a place called Kfar Darom, where there was an army outpost. Kfar Darom is a place mentioned in the Talmud where there was a big yeshiva in the time of the Talmud. And every day we drive down to the sand dunes to see if there's any progress. We had a contract to grow tomatoes for export to the States. And we're standing on the top of one of the highest sand dunes. And we don't see anything happening, but we do hear a noise from the southern direction, out of no place, out of the valley of the sand dune, comes up this Arab with his keffiyeh and his jalabiyah, his Arab robe, and he starts coming towards us. And all of a sudden we hear a noise from the valley, from the northern side, and out of nowhere comes this Arab, and he starts walking towards us with his kafia and his jalabia, and we see that they normally, today we would have been intimidated by it because it would have been scary. But this was before the times of peace, so there was no problem. Before the times of peace, it wasn't a problem at all. And they came towards us. They had bread and salt in their hands in the Muslim tradition, and they said to us, "Welcome. We're so glad you came. Maybe there'll be some work for our people, who are really in bad straits since the times the Egyptians were in charge of the area." And our guys start talking to them in Arabic. Many of our families, their grandparents came from all different countries all over, from Morocco, Tunisia, Yemen, everywhere. And they knew Arabic like I knew Yiddish. They knew dialects of Arabic. From my grandmother, I knew Yiddish. They knew from the grandma dialect. So they spoke to them Arabic. And it turns out that the guy who came from the southern side, he was the muhtar, the mayor, the religious leader of the nearest Arab town of Khan Yunis. Today, Khan Yunis is a big town in the news for bad things, but then it was a little sleepy little town. And the other guy who came from the northern direction was the muhtar, the mayor, the religious leader of the nearest Arab town to where we were standing. That was called Deir al-Balach, and that's also in the news all the time. And not such great things today. It's a big city today, and then it was a very sleepy little town. And so all of a sudden, the smuchta of Deir al-Balach, the mayor, he must have detected my Anglo accent when I was speaking in Hebrew to the other friends. We were 9 families and 2 bachelors at the time that was standing there. 2 bachelors, so we'd always have a minyan. And this guy, this muhtar, he says to me, starts talking to me in English. He detected my English accent, American accent. And he points down, he says, it turns out he studied in Oxford University. Of course, his English was much better than my South Brooklyn accent. But he pointed down at the sand and he said, "You guys are crazy. Don't you know that you can't grow anything in this area? We call it the cursed land." And I said, "Oy vey, how come you know about it? The Ministry of Agriculture doesn't know about it." And he said, "I know about it because we call this area El Jarara. El Jarara is Grar, and the last guys that ever grew anything in these bald, empty sand dunes are Abraham and Yitzchak Avinu, Abraham and Isaac, our forefathers." So I learned about my Jewish connection to this place from the muhtar of Deir al-Balach. And of course, after that, the archaeologists, the historians started doing research, and he was absolutely right. No one had grown anything there since Abraham and Isaac. And today, I should add in right now, maybe it's a good time to add it, that I had 10 grandchildren serving in the IDF right now, and 4 of them were at one time in Gaza fighting. And 3 of those 4 were born in Gush Katif. They were 4 years old, 3 years old when we were thrown out. And one of them sent to his parents, who hadn't heard anything from him for the longest time. He was able, on one Friday, his commander was going back in, and he let him send a recording on the WhatsApp, and there was a recording, and he showed himself in Gush Katif, in Gaza, right there, and he said, "Abba, Ima, don't worry, I'm fine, I'm at home." So this kid, who today was 20 maybe, and he felt that he was back home. And that's an amazing thing, that this feeling of yearning for home continued to our grandchildren, who are soldiers today and are fighting. One of my grandchildren was injured on the first day of the fighting in October 7th. He just came in to help me with the computer. He's out of the army right now, but he's fighting to get back in. That's how they are. So our grandchildren are fighting there now. So that's another little point that we have to keep into mind in this whole big picture. So these Arabs told us that this is nothing. The other story about yearning for home and going back home, and whether it's right or wrong, is of course the research that they found that between Kfar Darom, which was one of the towns of Gush Katif, but at that time it was an army outpost, and it had been a yeshiva in the time of the Talmud, and Netzer Hazani, where these sand dunes were 5 towns that the Maccabees had built. In the time of the Maccabees, there were 5 Jewish towns there where Jews were living in those towns. So that was how we were living in Gush Katif, knowing that the Maccabees had lived right now near us. So not only were we living in empty sand dunes, which the Arabs told us you can't grow in, but we were also living to where the historians and the archaeologists, not Jewish ones from all over the world, said this is where the Maccabees had towns. And then one day, while we were still in Kfar Rome, in this army outpost, waiting for them to build the houses and the greenhouses in where Netzer Hazani in Gush Katif was going to be built, shows up this man from Jerusalem. His name was El Kayam, and he was head of the Blind Institute in Kiryat Moshe in Jerusalem, next to the Yeshivat Merkaz Harav. And he said to us, listen, my family lived in the Jewish neighborhood of the city of Gaza for generations, and I lived there until 1929. I was 7 years old at the time. And my family was forced to leave. We lived there for generations, but there were the terrible massacres in Jerusalem and in Hebron. And the British came and told us that we should leave the Jewish neighborhood temporarily. They're going to put us temporarily in a hotel. And soon as everything quiets down, we'll able to go back into our homes in the city of Gaza, where our family lived for generations. And doesn't that sound familiar? Like things are in trouble, you're going to have to go to a hotel for a while and everything's going to work out. It just sounds like it's today, but this was in 1976. So this guy El Kiyam comes and we say, okay, let's go. We drive into Gaza City before the times of peace, no problem. We go to the old Jewish neighborhood of Gaza. It's a long row of homes, like with different entrances, arched entrances, like you see very often in East Jerusalem. And he says, let's knock at this door. It was the middle door. I think there were about 5 or 6 doors. And the arch door where you see where the mezuzah was torn out, because, like in East Jerusalem, they didn't put the mezuzah on the doorpost. It was dug into the cement. And you could see exactly where the mezuzah was torn out. And he said, let's knock at this door, El Kayam. So we knock at the door, and this lovely Arab woman, about his age, opens the door and invites us in, and we go in and we sit down and we have coffee before the times of peace. And we start talking, and El Kayam asks her, how did you come to this house? And she says, well, in about 1929, my parents moved from Saudi Arabia to Gaza because there was no work in Saudi Arabia. My father was looking for work, and they suggested, we asked in the streets, like, which house could we move into? And they said, oh, take any one of these houses in this row of houses. It's the Jewish neighborhood. They fled for dear life. They ran away. They're never coming back again. And you could choose any house you want. And that's how we ended up in this house. And El Kayam says to her, this was my family's home for generations. And the way he said it, you could tell how much he yearned for home. He really yearned for home. And he said, we walk out and we go to a different entrance, the first entrance, and I'm going to end this and talk on about other things soon, but the first entrance was, the doors were wide open. You also arched doorway. You could see where the mezuzah was torn out, and the doors were wide open, and it was this beautiful, beautiful mosaic floor that was beautiful, bright colors. I remember 2 of the pictures on the floor. One was of David and Goliath, and one is of Moshe and the snare and the burning bush, Moses and the burning bush. And it was just beautiful. And we were standing at the doorway, and El Kayam, and it was a muezzin. You know what a muezzin is, where the Arabs shout out from the mosque, hey, time for davening, time for prayer services. And he said, this was my cheder, this was my Talmud Torah, this is where I learned Aleph Bet. So when he said that, you could hear in his voice how he yearned for home. So I'm telling you this story that tell you that I was in Gaza, in the Jewish neighborhood. I had a privilege to be there, and that I learned about yearning for home from El Kayam, who so yearned for home after his family had lived there for a generation, and he ended up being forced to leave and not allowed to come back in 1929. and I very much yearn for home too. And I hope that we'll be able to come to home soon. Today, there are a million organizations that are talking about going home. Actually, in the big event that was in the Binyanei Oma, if you heard about it, that mostly Daniela Weiss and the regional council, what's his name? Yossi Dayan, organized. It was amazing. It was really a lot of people there. But if you looked at the bottom of the advertisement, there were about 12 different organizations, or maybe more, that each one is doing his thing. And we have we tried to get together a roof organization. That's the way it goes by Jews. And we tried to get a roof organization together to sort of keep things in some kind of a stand. We hope to make it get better. But right now, each organization is doing our own things. So at this point, our people from Gush Katif really felt that we had something to contribute to this whole talk of going back to Gaza because of our experiences, because we were there and because we yearn for home, because yearning for home is a big deal. It's a big deal when you're talking about the rights to go back. One of the things that we said in our organization, they call it, the guys who organized it call it returning in victory. Very nice. It doesn't matter. They all have names, similar names. Returning in victory, Gush Katif headquarters, Shavim u'minatzchim. It's an answer to the people who are saying, because what you read in the media today is all that this idea of going back to Gaza, it's delusional. It's crazy. You can't even, what are you talking about? It's not something reasonable. It's not something possible. It's not something. So, and really, I must tell you, I had many media people from all over the world who came to me right after the war began. And I remember the guy from Germany, the first guy who came was a big TV guy from Germany. And he was interviewing me and he said, so, but what are you going to do about the 2 million Arabs that are still there? I mean, okay, you have to protect they killed you, they raped you, they did horrible things to you, so you don't want to live next door to them anymore. We can understand that, but what are you going to do with 2 million people? That was the day after they visited the sites there and saw and heard about all the horrid things that were happening here. And it's important to every once in a while open up your YouTube and listen again to these people telling about what happened to them, because it's easy for us to forget about them, forget what happened that day. But it happened, and I don't want to be neighbors of those people. I don't think we can allow the people of the Negev to be neighbors of people who did such horrid things. There's no doubt about it. So when we we say, okay, they say, how can you do this? How can you talk about going back? So we thought that we have at a different angle, the people from Gush Katif. Our angle was that one thing that we learned from our lack of success in stopping this disengagement from happening was that we never reached the average person on the street. We didn't connect to everybody. We were busy together with everybody else in the States too, and here talking to the Knesset and talking to the ministers and talking to the media and speaking in big places, but we weren't getting to the average person all over. So we said, maybe this is our job in this whole effort to be able to build again in Gaza, is to make this message of the importance of not allowing the enemy to live on top of these people in the Western, what we call the Western Negev, or the Gaza periphery. Really, it's the Western Negev, if you think of it. It's right near the Western Sea, we have this thing that we want to say. So one of the things that we started to do is try to just speak to a lot of people. And one of the things that we found is that many of the people living in the Chalutza area, some of you know it, it's where Bnei Netzarim, Naveh, Shlomit, they were all taken out of their homes because they're right next to the border. The terrorists were stopped before they reached that place, before they reached those towns. They were meters away from those towns, but they didn't reach them. And many of them are on the boards of the towns. They're active in the area, in the regional councils. So they've all begun to be active and go into all the meetings and be together with the people from the kibbutzim and the moshavim and talk about the need for security. Now, you ask Anita Tucker why she wants to go home, it's because it's my home. I lived there for 30 years. And I think it's a part of the land of Israel. And I think it's a part of the tribe of Judah. All that is true. But to these people that are living in the kibbutzim and the moshavim, what is most important now is security. How can you ask somebody to go back into his house if right on his border you're going to put back the people that did it, or people that voted for the Hamas, or people that were in contact with the Hamas, or allowed the Hamas to shoot rockets from their house? All that is the same people that are going to move back in if we allow it. So I think there is no one that can not understand that that's crazy. I mean, and they're not going to come back. Many of them are talking about not coming back. Some of them are talking about coming back if there's proper security. So this is one of the things that we're trying to do, to drip, 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 not yell from the rooftops, it's Israel, it's our rights to live there and all that, but to be on the other side. Daniela Weiss is doing a great job of yelling from the rooftops, and she's wonderful. And she cares. And tomorrow they'll say, there's a chance to put a tent down here. She'll be there with 10 families and putting a tent. And you need that too. But you also need to remember that we have to reach all the people, because if you think about it today, and you look at the map, you realize that all these kibbutzim and moshavim are maybe not even a third of the population of the Western Negev, who is the population, the majority population in this area that had to leave because they were killed and massacred and raped. It's the people from the towns of Ofakim, from the towns of Sderot and Netivot, who, thank God, had a miracle. They were not killed, but the terrorists were right in there, and they easily could have done it. So those are the three towns that are right near the border, and they are actually the majority of the population, and that's a big thing. And most of the population in Netivot, in Sderot, and in Ofakim are very right-wing. So it's an important thing to remember that. And these kibbutzim and these moshavim that the media is talking about so much are really a very small part of the population. But we have to care about them. We have to insist that they have security. And if you show the map now, if you can show that map now, I'll just show you one of the ideas that,
Eileen? There we
she's
go.
got it. Not in, almost. Oh, so we showed a map, and it's written in Hebrew and it's small. Let's see if you can get it as big as you can. So we just threw an idea of stage one, because tomorrow morning we're not going to build all the towns, 21 towns of Gush Katif at one time, and they're going to be built beautiful homes again. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a process, and God willing, I hope that we're going to build a Haredi town right on top of that place in south of Gaza, where they found that beautiful floor of David and his harp, which was a town in the time of the Amoraim. It was a very big city in the time of Amoraim, right south of Gaza City. So we're talking about it. We talked to town planners, and really, I was really like taking it very seriously at the beginning. But now I realize that we have to be much more realistic and talk about something that's talking about the security of the people that lived in how can they get back home. So the whole idea was that the first area closest to the towns over here will be agricultural area. They'll grow cotton, they'll grow wheat, not something that you have to go into every single moment, but it's yours. You have to go there and check the water. You have to go there and grow things. It'll be some kind of gidulei sadeh, field crops. And every one of the towns will get additional land over here in the Gaza Strip to protect them on the one hand, and as a kind of a punishment for the guys who tried to kill them and rape them and murder them. And land is the only language that they understand. The Arabs taught us, it's an important point besides the map to tell you, is the Arabs, all the years that I lived with them, and we were very good friends with them, we helped them in modern agriculture and everything. They taught us from the very beginning, if you're strong, we'll respect you. If you're weak, we'll step all over you. It's a different culture. It's so hard for us with our, what we call Judeo-Christian, or whatever you want to call it, American Christian culture, is that if somebody is weak, we hug them, we want to help them, we want to give them money, we want to do everything we can for them. That's our culture. But to somebody to say, if you're strong, I'll respect you, and if you're weak, I'll step all over you, we can't believe that that's true. but it is their culture. It's a different culture. It's a lot worse than that we saw on Simchat Torah on October 7th. But really, that's the basis of it. That's the very basis of it. And
Anita,
yeah,
can I just ask you for a second? Not all of us can read the Hebrew and
yeah,
understand.
that's what I was just about
Can
to
you
do. Okay.
explain which colors?
Right. Okay. So the blue color, that you see from the inside, that's the security line. In other words, there'll be soldiers who will secure the area because we can't let this happen again right now. So that's one strip. But before that strip of the security, there'll be empty fields where they'll grow, where they'll get land that belonged to the Arabs, and now it'll be theirs because that's the punishment we have to, that they can understand that now we're the strong ones and we're in charge. And this is our land because you did this to us. And I think that's as fair as you can go. I mean, it's just a little strip of land. And so that every one of the kibbutzim will get it. The gray part over here that you see here is talking about also for the regional councils will also get land. They'd be able to grow things for extra profits for the municipalities there of Ofakim and Sderot and in the northern part of the Gaza Strip. In this, the purple thing that you see there is going to be an industrial area that will be together with Sderot and the Moatzah, the regional council of the Shar HaNegev, and the Chof Ashkelon Regional Council. In other words, all the major municipalities there of the regional councils, they'll joint own that regional area of industry. Industrial areas like that are very common all over in Israel and Judea and Samaria. We have a lot of areas like that. And that will be right near Erez, not far from Ashkelon, you can see. And next to that is going to be a big park that will be of the Keren Kayemet, the Jewish National Fund, in memory of the murdered. A tourist area. You see
What
the
color
light
is that?
the light gray here over here, it's green. You see it?
This one?
Green,
This
bright
is
green.
green. This
Yeah,
is what
bright green. That's
this.
going to be a
Oh,
tourist.
bright green. This.
Yes, that's going to be, here's Ashkelon, where I can't,
Right here.
my finger
This is
shows.
Ashkelon.
Yeah, up there is Ashkelon, the big word, and the green area is going to be a beautiful park to commemorate the murdered.
Park Kakal.
Yeah, a nice park. And over here, the purple is the industrial area, and the light green, sort of the the khaki green, is going to be a area of growing wheat and cotton. For that, profits will go to all the regional councils in the area. And the blue again is going to be security with Armin. What you notice, and over here, you won't believe this, is going to be a tayelet. You know what a tayelet is? That's like in Tel Aviv, in Netanya, a promenade where people can go all the way from Ashkelon down along the beach and walk up until the security area, the blue, the dark
That's
blue.
light blue over here.
The light blue
Violet.
strip. Now,
Yeah.
in each area, if you notice, there's an exit to the sea. In the northern part here, under the growth of the wheat and the cotton, there's a blue area, and in the middle there's a blue area, and down near Egypt, near the Philadelphian line, there's also a blue area, and that each of them go out to the sea. Because one of the terrible things that happened in this horrid thing on October 7th was that there was no alternate plan. There was no alternate plan if they were attacked by and when we were living in Gush Katif, towards the end, when there were the roadmap agreements, that was one of the last agreements in 2003. America and Israel, if you remember, gave the Palestinian police, they were called, they gave them arms. They had rifles, and they were watching the area. And at that time, there was a fear by the security that they would at one point turn and attack our towns. And at that time, the army prepared a plan of exiting us via the sea, because we wouldn't be able to exit through the Gaza back into Israel because of the many people with rifles on the Arab Palestinian police with rifles, and they would be able to exit us through the sea with ships that would be waiting, and we knew exactly where we had to go. If something happened, they would take us out with ships. So I think basic security. today is also that we have other alternate plans if something terrible happens. We have Jordan on one side, we have Lebanon on the north, we have enemies all over. So we should be prepared for every possibility. So I think it's just an idea. It's not something that, we're dripping it to the people so that it should come from them, because if it comes from us, it's not so acceptable. But we're dripping through these people that live in that area as an idea for better security that could be stage one. Stage one is not tomorrow we're building towers all over the place. And what's going to happen to the Arab population, as this German reporter asked me. When he asked me that, the first German reporter that I told you came to interview me right when the war started, but what are you going to do with the 2 million Arabs? So I said, you know what? I think we should put them on boats and ship them to Germany, because you are the humane people. You're the ones who should be humane. You should take them in. He said, no, we don't want, we have enough Muslims by us. We don't want any. So I said, well, you know what's going to happen if you say that? What's going to happen is what happened to the Jews in 48 when we had to flee in 45, when we had to flee from Germany, and the British, we came by boat, and the British wouldn't let us into Israel, and they sent us back on the boats, and we drowned in the sea. If you remember the Exodus and several other boats like that just drowned. So he looked at me, he didn't really care very much in any case, so it didn't matter, but he had no answer really for me for that he wasn't willing to take it. And I said that to every one of the reporters from all over Europe that came to interview me. I said the same thing. Well, you're the humane ones. I think we should ship them to them. But the truth is, the simplest answer to that is, it is humane to let anybody who wants to leave. Who is saying these crazy things in the media? Somebody's paying a lot of money to have that being said in the media. And I've learned from my experiences in Gush Katif and the years since then that everything that we read in the media, the money behind it is what enabled it to be on this page or that page, or up on top or on the bottom, or how it was going to be said. And you can't get in an op-ed in the Jerusalem Post or anywhere. It's very hard if you say anything too opinionated, too right-wing, because somebody is paying for the paper. I mean, we have wonderful people working there, really. There are wonderful people, and they're with us and everything. But that's the way it works. So what we know is that it's logical, and that's what we have to tell to the people on the bottom, all the way at the bottom. Tell me when to stop. The people all the way on the bottom, that's the ones that we have to speak to. Okay, because it's only right to allow people who want to. We did it in Syria, we did it in Afghanistan, we did it all over. When people, they should leave. They can leave if they want to. Egypt doesn't want to let them go through. We can let them go through. We can take them out by boats. It's not a problem. But how come why was it okay to force us out? Why was it okay? That was human to force us out, and you can't force them out. Don't force them out. Allow those who want to go to leave.
That's an excellent point. I keep wondering, Israel, we've had so many victories. And after the victories, we haven't done what the Arab world expected us to do. We haven't, after the 67, after 73, we haven't reclaimed the land that was recaptured. We've just let it be in kind of limbo. Now here we have a war going on, and it's a defensive war again, and giving land back, that's totally out of the mindset of the whole region. But Israel is expected to behave differently. Before we continue with questions, and I know people will have questions, I wanted to call upon my brother, Ken Friedman, to unmute himself. We are planning to have a trip to do some volunteer work, and Ken and I are going to co-lead it. And so if you could just give us a little bit of information so that people can hear what we have up our sleeves.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I really enjoyed listening to your message, Anita. and look forward to the questions. But as far as AFSI and the May Hazuk mission, yes, somebody liked my shirt. I'm wearing one of my AFSI shirts. So we're planning for early May, 9 to 10 days, basically, with about half of it being touring, visiting our friends, probably going to see Anita and see Netzer Hazani and going to the South. I was there, as most of you know, in January for the whole month and became very intimate with a lot of the areas there. And I did some really fantastic volunteer work, which will definitely at least visit that place, Shuva, which is just a couple kilometers from Netivot and a couple kilometers from the Gaza border and near all the kibbutzim and moshavs that got annihilated on October 7th. Anyway, so we're working on a couple different volunteer options. One possibility is doing something with Sarel because they kind of make it easy and maybe for a group, but they're filling up fast and it's difficult. It might be hard to manage. I'm also with the fellows that started the program in Shuva, which is getting much recognition and become almost part of the standard tour. They have a whole network of folks that I'm looking to see if I can find places where we can volunteer for maybe 2 or 3 days, let's say, because there's a lot of one-day things, but those are hard to manage, and you don't really get to. I want the experience to be where you get to be useful, and we get to know the team and the people. It'll most likely be in support of IDF soldiers. There might be some programs in support of some of the folks that have been who've been forced from their homes, that have been displaced and are in communities and hotels and so forth. But anyway, those are the things we're working on. We have Ami, our traditional friend and driver, ready to be with us. And he has some real experiences with some of his family that was very affected by October 7th, some heroic family of his that maybe some of you know about. But the sooner we have indications of interest, the better. Because certainly on the Sarel side, if we want to proceed with that, we need to kind of get that into works right away. And again, we're looking at sometime in the first 2 weeks of May, give or take, but before Yom HaAtzmaut and Yom HaZikaron and after Passover. So that's my short story. You can get in touch with Judy if you have some interest and you think you'd like to try to join us. You can get in touch with me. That's fine as well. So thank you everybody for joining today, and hope we hear from you, and hope we get to plan a great trip for early May to Eretz Yisrael.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Ken.
Let me say one more thing. I saw
Sure.
Glenn chimed in. If somebody has some volunteer ideas that they think would be places for me to do some research or look into, please feel free to send those to me as well. Thank you.
Okay, just 1 minute. I would like, as we're transitioning to questions, I had promised Hugh Kitson that he could say hello to Anita. There you are. You're unmuted, Hugh.
Yep. Hi, Anita. I don't know whether you remember me, but I met you in your greenhouse back in 2004. And I remember you telling us how Oslo had basically wrecked everything. Before Oslo, you got on very well with the Arabs. And after that, things got progressively worse. But I pray and hope that you can get back to Gaza one day, because as you said earlier, it is part of the tribe of Judah, the land allotted to Judah. And I stand aghast at what the British government and the Foreign Office and our Foreign Secretary are doing, of wanting to hand the whole of Gaza back to Palestinian administration under the PA. I mean, it's just it beggars belief, but our prayer is that you will be able to return home. But anyway, it's lovely to see you again. I often wondered what had happened to you. And next time I come to Israel, and I'm not sure when that will be, I'd love to catch up with you.
Okay, great. You know, it's very interesting that during the first time that anybody was ever stabbed, because you said about Oslo that it was the beginning, the first time that someone was ever stabbed from Gush Katif in Khan Yunis was the day when Sadat and Begin gave land, because we thought, wow, there's going to be peace. This is beautiful. But the Arabs saw it as a weakness. That was a weakness on our part. And when you're weak, we step all over you. When you're strong, we respect you. So that was an example of the same thing. And the same thing, Oslo, each thing deteriorated because they stopped respecting us.
Absolutely. Helene, you have a question. Would you like to ask yourself, or I'm asking you to unmute?
Okay,
There you go.
I am unmuted. One of the hurdles, I think, has been throughout this horrific piece of history that we're witnessing, has been the fact that no Arab nation has opened its doors to these alleged innocent civilians that are being shuffled around now. So the question, I think, is, what will it take to persuade Arab countries to take in people who actually want to leave, and perhaps send them elsewhere on the globe? I mean, you know, the French, I think the French have had it with their burning cities and as well as some of the other places in Europe where the Arabs are really wreaking havoc. But perhaps we can find a way to make it more appealing for them to take these people in that nobody wanted from the get-go, because Egypt didn't want to take Gaza back when the Israelis offered it. Could it be more appealing if Israel was willing to vet the clearance for this? And how could we press for this?
First of all, you should just, I read in the paper, I don't know if it's true, that last week, 750 Arab families went to Scotland. They moved to Scotland. They were accepted. They had apparently applied before, whatever it was, they finished the process and they left for Scotland. Now that's nothing, but it's an example of what can happen easily. And there are other countries in Africa that offered, in Australia, there are other countries that offered places where they would be willing to accept refugees, like all over, just as we accepted refugees from all sorts of crazy countries, and of course the Ukraine. People all over the world. Germany has accepted many people from the Ukraine. So I don't think it's crazy. The Arab countries, it's a very difficult thing, because other places you can talk about money, and only to poor Arab countries can you talk about money. Most of them are very wealthy, and the money is not going to be an influence. So that's a difficult thing. They don't want them. They really don't. We know that Jordan knows that they're going to be pushed for a revolution, and they're not interested in them. You know, Lebanon is in a mess, and there really aren't very many in Morocco. They're not looking for trouble either. So the people that we're sending out are people that were looking for trouble. They were educated to be troublemakers. And I don't think those people, it's only the people that will claim that they're humane. You're talking about refugees that want to leave. I know that there were many people that we knew in Gaza, that we were in touch with them, and they tried so hard to leave it. It was a very expensive process. And usually they were arrested by the time they were getting forward in the process. They were arrested, tortured, and killed, you know, because they're considered collaborators. The second they wanted to leave, they were considered collaborators. So it's a difficult process, and it's something that I think it has to be, the dialogue has to change by the fact to say that it's okay to leave if you can. And each of the European countries, each of the Africa, Australia, everyone will take a few. And this one takes 2,000, 5,000, like it happened in every place where there were refugees. It's no different. I don't see that the Arab countries are going to run to. They hate each other more than we hate them.
Yeah, it is absolutely amazing that there's no Arab country that seems to want to back up um, the Palestinians. Not even a country like Jordan that is primarily Palestinian Arab. Um, Anita, I'm curious, the map that you showed us, it looks like you spent a lot of time thinking and planning. Um, Somebody keeps putting up pictures of my mom with, anyway, so how well has that been? Has it been accepted at all? Is it a topic of discussion anywhere?
Yes, one of the people who live in the south there from one of our towns, moved there from Gush Katif, but lives there was taken out of his home also. He has spoken on the media several times about it, and we're dripping it. We're not yelling from the rooftops. What we did find is that when we spoke to members of Knesset and when we spoke to some of the sarim, the ministers, that they were with us for building again in Gaza in some form, but they say now is not the time to yell it from the rooftops because it's just putting more pressure from the United States and from other countries on the whole story. It's just putting on Israel. It's putting more pressure from America and so they say now is not the time to yell it from the rooftops. The demand has to come from the people of the Gaza region. One of the problems of the people from Gaza region being outspoken and saying what they think is that they're in a mess. They're spread out in different. They didn't learn anything from our expulsion. They didn't learn anything, and they're spread out in different hotels. They're spread out in different apartments in different areas, and for them to get their leadership together is a very, very difficult process, and they really are not there yet. So there are other people that are more from the cities that are trying to lead the leadership to help them. The idea is just to help them and security. And with them, this map is really starting to drip and ring a bell because you have to have some answer for the security. You can't just ignore it and say you have to go home and we can't leave the Negev empty. Just think of the map now. This whole part of the Negev is empty. There's nobody living there. And in the north, nobody's living there. Half of Israel is empty. Like it's crazy, you know?
Yeah, that certainly can't
what
go
you
on.
have to say is so important that I want to make a suggestion. Right now, you are preaching to the choir. We agree with you. We hear you. We love you. What you need to do is to speak to the American public because the American public needs to understand the history of Gaza. And they have to understand that only through you, if you write to the American newspapers, you will be able to reach a group of people who don't understand the history. And they really need to know it because Israel was very kind in giving Gaza over, only to be attacked by the other Arabs there. So let me know if you want a listing of the email addresses of these newspapers. I write to them every day.
Fine, but I think that's it. That's exactly it. We need you guys, AFC people, you right wingers, to do the job for us there because we're working very hard here, and there's just so much that everybody can do. We formed an organization now. We're trying to pay somebody to work a half a job so they'll have time to organize the things a little bit just to get things together. It's not easy, to pay somebody to do it, but we're trying to do it. And each of these organizations are trying to do something like this. By the way, today, if you notice that's getting a lot of feedback in the media is the blockage of the food trucks. And that's just a little step in that direction of saying we going until now. You're just pushing us too far. And it's a good thing. It's a little bit, but it's a good thing and it's happening. So people are getting out there. It is dripping that people are saying we've had it. This is enough. We don't, there's just so much we're willing to let go by. And so people are coming to these demonstrations, and that's pretty amazing. That's pretty amazing for this population that doesn't move so easily. But you guys did such great jobs all the time. Now to get out to the media, I've been sending letters from one of my friends, Linda Allen, who's been writing letters. I've been sending it out to the Jerusalem Post, to the Times of Israel. This, and they don't accept them so easily. They don't accept it. And letters to the editor. Well, we can write that. Yeah, I do it in the Israeli papers often. We should try more. Yes, definitely.
Carol, if you would like to to share that list with me. We'd be happy to send that out in the follow-up to this the thank you that we normally send out for attending with
Send me your email address. It'll be off today.
my email address.
Yes.
Okay, I will send it to you.
Right.
Oh, actually, all of you should know, my email address is Judy, Judy, at afc.org. It's
Oh,
pretty
okay.
easy to remember.
Judy at what?
AFSI, AFSI.
Okay.
Americans for a Safe Israel.org.
Okay,
Okay.
you'll get it.
So I just want to thank you again, Anita, for being here. There is so much, you have so much history and so much knowledge and so much energy to, to bring people along and to help people understand. And I am, we're all very honored to have gotten to hear from your mouth what was and probably what could be. So we're going to end on time today. It's 2:01. If anybody, what we're going to do right now is end the recording.